Well, I suspect people are going to be joining us as we go along. First of all, thank you for taking part in this webinar. And it's a good opportunity to look at imposter syndrome. Now, I'm just going to put it onto presentation mode. So a bit about myself in terms of my background. So I'm a stress coach, life coach, martial artist, and author. And there's a number of books I've been busy writing over the last couple of years, especially over lockdown and the challenges that people have been facing in terms of stress and well-being. So the couple of books I've been writing is Coping with Stress and Adversity, and there's some nice reviews on Amazon, but it's actually available through studio3.org website. There's Little Pocket of Confidence and on Amazon, and Penguin and the Bullies, and a children's book on life, dealing with life with bullies at school. And my wife and I co-wrote that. In terms of the agenda for today, so there's a couple of things I'll be going through. So what is the causes of imposter syndrome? How common is imposter syndrome? How common is it in women and men? And to recognize the imposter feelings that we have, what triggers imposter syndrome, and rewriting our mental programs, as well as exploring some coping strategies. Now, so a bit of a quiz here. Who are these individuals you can see, and what do they have in common? You can answer in the chat as well, so you get interactive. Let's have a look. What answers have we got? We got Riz. Anyone else? Any other characters? Tom Hanks, indeed. Michelle, and yeah, and the other lady. I think you all may be getting. So we do have. Slide will move forward. Indeed, we have Riz Ahmed, Tom Hanks, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Michelle Obama. Surprisingly, they're all big celebrities. We're very familiar with them, and in fact, they do express that they've had imposter syndrome throughout their life, which is quite amazing, really, considering these people can get to high echelons of their careers and still have imposter syndrome. So if individuals like that can have it, so what does it mean for us? Well, in terms of what imposter syndrome is, in this particular way of describing it, imposter syndrome is a psychological phenomenon where individuals doubt their accomplishments and fear being exposed as fraud despite evidence to the contrary. Now, as far back as 1970, Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes did a lot of research in this area. Although it can affect anyone regardless of their gender, research suggests that women are more likely to experience imposter syndrome than men. However, this can be distinguished by the following 6 characteristics. And this is a paper by Clance again back in 1985. It explained that an individual who has imposterism must experience at least 2 characteristics from the list below. The imposter cycle in terms of self-doubt and the concerns that people have in their mind. You need to be special or the best. Characteristics of Superman or Superwoman. Fear of failure, denial of ability, and as well as discounting praise and fear itself. Now, these are some of the descriptions of feelings that individuals have. I feel like an imposter. I deserve success. Isolation and shame, despair, self-doubt and fear. I feel like a fraud. So these are some of the things that people are experiencing imposter syndrome. I've experienced it myself on occasions over the years, and it can have an impact on the way we behave and interact with the world. Sometimes this is a good way of describing what the situation is. We have certain assumptions of the world, and we have a certain reality. So on the left-hand side, what I know and is relatively small in terms of my assumptions. What I think others know is a lot larger in terms of what the situation I feel or sense is. However, in reality, what I know and what others know are in fact quite similar. However, in terms of imposter syndrome, it's a persistent feeling of not just measuring up, even when there's no evidence to back that up. It's just sometimes difficult to describe if people aren't experienced it before. So these are some of the symptoms of imposter syndrome that it's worth looking into. So feelings like you're not good enough, no matter how hard you try. Thinking that your success is due to luck or timing. Downplaying your accomplishments or dismissing praises from others. And comparing yourself to others, but falling short of their expectations or your thought of expectations. Now, in terms of research, how many people actually suffer from this? Well, 25 to 30% of high achievers may suffer from imposter syndrome, surprisingly, and yet 70% of adults may experience imposterism at least once in their lifetime. Now, in terms of a number of the reasons that I've mentioned, research is suggesting is that what causes imposter syndrome. Now, this could be three main areas in terms of some of the research. This could be due to upbringing, personality traits, social conditioning as well. It can also stem from specific situations such as negative feedback and criticism, which can lead to this. Let's discuss upbringing. Now, it depends on the environment that you're brought up in. Research is suggesting that the family dynamics plays a significant role in the development of imposter syndrome. In a household where there are siblings and they're consistently compared by parents, that individual may develop a sense of inadequacy, leading to imposter feeling. Other things like personality traits. Perfectionism tend to have unrealistic high standards. And these individuals obviously are trying to do everything 100% correct. Those individuals who have anxiety may be more prone to negative self-talk. Oh, can I just ask people to pause if you've got the microphones on? Self-doubt can cause individuals to underestimate their abilities and achieve achievements, leading to imposter feelings as well. What about social conditioning? There is research out there that suggests that gender and cultural norms may have a big contribution to imposter syndrome. And particularly women may particularly feel that they have to prove themselves versus men, and they may think they have to be more perfect, depending on the upbringing as well, compared to men. There's obviously these cultural norms that influence individuals to feel like they need to meet certain expectations. So, in essence, leading to more imposter feelings if they fell short of these. A bit more research in recent years, KPMG in 1920 found that some 75% of women experience imposter syndrome at work compared to 61% of men. And the International Journal of Behavioral Science found that some 70% of women, compared to 50% of men, also reported experiencing imposter feelings at some point in their lives. In terms of some of the same study also found that women tend to experience more intense feelings of inadequacy than men. So you don't have to agree with this, it's just some of the research findings. I'll just keep on moving the screen. Okay, so in terms of possible explanations of why women experience imposter syndrome more than men, this sort of alludes to this. It could be pervasive societal gender roles and stereotypes. Girls are often told they need to be perfect, and when judged more harshly than boys for their failures as a result, and they may internalize the beliefs that they need to work harder than their male counterparts to prove themselves in society. Women are also still underrepresented in many fields, and they feel that they do not belong, are not qualified enough to be there. And there's obviously the gender pay gap that's been addressed up and down the country, but that can have an impact on a person's well-being. And it can be a self-fulfilling cycle when women doubt their abilities, which in turn may lead to them to underperform or self-sabotage. This is obviously not the case of all women, but this is what the research is showing in this particular slide. So the effects of imposter syndrome can be quite wide, can be quite detrimental to women's careers and well-being, also lead to self-doubt and anxiety and stress, and burnout, and productivity and performance may be impacted as well. And I've spoken to a number of women that are very qualified, very astute and bright individuals. And sometimes they may not apply for promotions or negotiate for higher salaries because they maybe feel that don't deserve it or not qualified. Whereas particularly maybe some men will actually go the other way. They may not be qualified, but they still apply for the positions and do ask for the bigger pay rises as well. Not saying that's the case with all women, but it's a recent experience managing it, both men and women over the last 15 years. So this can create obviously a gender gap in pay we mentioned earlier, and perpetuate the underrepresentation of women in the leadership positions. So men also experience imposter syndrome. However, they're less likely to admit it due to societal expectations and the fact that they feel like they need to be confident and assertive. Bit of work on research on the Journal of Business and Psychology found that men tend to engage in more self-promotion, seek more validation, while women tend to downplay their achievements and attribute their success to external factors. You know, that's not the case for everyone, but this is what the research is saying. Now, it's said that there are 5 types of imposter syndrome, and these are listed here. So we have the perfectionist, the natural genius, the expert, the rugged individualist, and the superhuman or superwoman or superman. Now, in terms of, there's also something worth making note of is the Harvey Imposter Scale. You can go to this online if you look at Harvey Imposter Scale, and it will be on this video link. In terms of when the recording's been done, you can have a look at exactly where you can find this. Might be useful for you to investigate further. So let's look at perfectionists. So these individuals always hold themselves to a higher standard. You're maybe sometimes accused of being a micromanager. And if you do deliver a successful presentation, you kick yourself because you forgot one minor detail, even though everything else, 99% of it was fantastic. And this individual may never settle for less than gold. Anything else is a failure in their minds. So that's sort of perfectionist. So what's the sort of support and fix for these individuals? There's no one single answer, but it's trying to do something called the GEQ. So good enough quality. It's breaking the cycle of the perfectionist may well help them. And accepting imperfection and having imperfect affirmations. For example, getting those individuals to try and accept that it's okay to get 75% of the work done or 75% in an exam rather than 100, and to wait later to improve and to perfect the task at hand at a later point. Not easy for those individuals because their whole life they've been perfectionists trying to get 100%. Another example of how you can do this is something that I can ask you to do now, in fact, a little exercise. if you get a piece of paper and pen, it's a 2-minute exercise that you can do. And the exercise is you start drawing with an idea in mind. It can be anything you like. You've got 2 minutes to do this. So you can draw a person, a house, an animal, whatever you like. So if you make a start, we'll give you a 2-minute countdown. So the aim is to put as much detail in as possible. Don't draw too quickly, and just take your time over that 2 minutes. I do urge you to get a piece of pen and paper out if you haven't already done so, and just to do that. Some of you are starting to get halfway through that. Once you're getting close to finishing that, I'd like to embrace your unfinished work. Just accept that you haven't got it complete. You haven't got it 100%. You can always go back to it. So that's a simple exercise that you can use for those that are perfectionists, and they can always go back to it. Is breaking that cycle and setting realistic goals as well as one of the things. So it's worth looking at your goals for those who are perfectionists and saying, do those goals, are they realistic? Ask someone else, get their input as well. And because sometimes perfectionists have such high goals, in most people's eyes, they are amazing and phenomenal goals. But in their eyes, they feel like they have to exceed all the time and really raise their game. Check in the chat if there's anything in there. Okay, Emma Watson. Okay. Okay, so the natural genius. So these are individuals who believe people are born talented or skilled, very easily frustrated, and may switch from hobby to hobby. So you may know some of these individuals. You might be that individual yourself, and sometimes see everyone around them as achieving success, while they are the ones that are failing, which we know is not the case. However, what can we do to support these individuals is to cultivate a growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So it's the belief that you can always improve your skills and ability day by day, rather than having to think that, some individuals have to stay fixed in their genius minds. What can we do to help them to ensure that they give themselves a wide window for development and growth? So the expert out there, one of the third categories, they tend to prepare themselves to fully by diving into books, lots of preparation for courses or any particular task that they're doing, lots of training. These individuals may avoid applying for jobs we mentioned earlier because they don't meet the qualifications, or they've been teaching or working in their jobs for years. You still feel like you're still not good enough, even though you've got a lot of experience. So what can we do to help in those individuals is to help them recognize that there's never an end to knowledge, to accumulate them only when they need it, rather than them having to expect to be the top of the game and know 100% of everything. You've got the rugged individualists, and these are the ones that tend to stand out from the crowd, prefer to work solo, need more time for preparation, and don't always ask for help if they need it. And typo there, so it said, you should really ask a friend for help. and figure out who the right person is. Now, figure out who the top 5 people are that individual spends time with. If they are dream builders and not dream crushers, then they should spend time with those individuals. So it's important these individuals who are rugged individuals be brave enough to ask for advice, to ensure that they can have someone else to bounce ideas off. And lastly, you've got the superwoman or the superman, and who you may recognize these individuals as multitasking. They're doing everything from work to maybe business, doing a sport, school runs, different chores every single day, and really stretching themselves out and working overtime while other team members have gone home. They're still working extra hours, either getting in early or staying late. And they can sometimes neglect family and friends and hobbies in order to get the work done, because they feel like they have to be that person, to be that super person. So if these individuals need to figure out if they can actually have some more positive self-affirmations and look after their well-being and time. And they don't always have to save the world. There's ways of recognizing that, getting the support that they need from their wider family and those that they've got mentors that they can get support from. These are worth making a note of in terms of questions for the imposters, those going through imposter syndrome. And here we have, think about which of the successes that individual is not taking ownership of. So you may see an individual who's seen as very successful, for example, the celebrities or someone at work, that they have all these accolades. Which ones are they not actually owning up to? Do they think it's just a matter of luck? They've got all these accolades and successes and promotions. So making sure that they take real ownership of that. In terms of belief systems, which of the beliefs are holding you back, if that's a person that has these thoughts, in terms of imposter syndrome as well? At the same time, which are the beliefs that are supporting you? We're going to talk about positive belief and negative thought processes later on. Now, if this individual were to change their belief systems, what effect of updating their beliefs would that have? What impact would that have? So some excellent questions there to explore in terms of the impact of belief systems and ownership. A few more questions and thoughts. Just imagine, how would things be different if you were to update your beliefs? Just pause for a moment. Repeat that. How would things be different if you update your beliefs? Six, which of your strengths are you overlooking? Make sure that individual reviews all the different fantastic strengths that they have. They may be fantastic at communicating. They may be great at networking. They may be good at presenting, maybe good at doing research. Whatever it is, it's worth showcasing all those different skills, because it can be overlooked. Because if we compare two individuals, one individual may be very happy-go-lucky, very confident individual, may not have all these fantastic strengths, whereas someone else may have a tremendous number of strengths, but they still feel like an imposter. This is very important, we mentioned earlier. And who is that person talking to, or who are you talking to, in fact, about this? Are you speaking to the right type of mentor and individuals that are going to be supportive of your situation? And let's say in the future, you beat the imposter syndrome, what will you be losing? As well as gaining, what will you be losing as a result? People may say, or lose fears. They, they lose time. It's up to that individual to figure out what it is they will be losing as a result of beating the imposter syndrome and turn that into a positive. Now, these are different factors that can be used to review those that are in your control and those are not in your control. And as you can see from here, person's mental state a lot of the time can be in their control, and how they respond to situations in terms of their attitude and how they keep themselves calm in those circumstances, in terms of the intensity levels, how you actually think about the situation and the challenges you're facing every single day, how much effort you put into your day-to-day work and practices that you do. What about your preparation? How much preparation do you put in? So these are the factors you can have control over. However, we don't, on the other side, on the right-hand side, factors that you can't or I can't control. Private conversations about me that happen in the coffee room or where I'm not around. I can't control that. Rumors that are happening behind my back, I can't control it. Maybe positive rumors, maybe negative rumors. Particular client's environment, which you can't control if you're working in a client's environment. Sometimes you don't have the choice to work the projects. You're just given certain projects to do. This is questionable in terms of gender, because obviously that's very topical these days. This is just something I'm taking from some reading. And other people's opinion about me or those who are concerned about imposter syndrome, they're the ones you cannot control. So you cannot control them. Why is it that some people get so frustrated and sometimes stressed and anxious about it? So a couple of tips for conquering imposter syndrome is to make sure we acknowledge the, just go back a bit. I think the screen is not showing me the full. Let's move this around a bit, sorry. Not playing ball with me at the moment. So it's acknowledge your feelings, they're normal. You're not alone out there if you're feeling all these stressful feelings or anxious feelings. What individuals tend to find it is that if they keep a record of their accomplishments, keep on revisiting them on a regular basis, then it does make a real difference in terms of realizing that they are better than they initially thought. They have accomplished a number of different things and successes in their life. And remember that it's a natural thing. A failure is natural. It's part of growth and learning. Everyone experiences that. And these individuals ourselves, we are human. We're not perfect all the time. That's what makes us, individualistic. That's what makes us exciting, because we're not like robots. We are human beings. And the fact that you do talk about it with family and friends who are supportive, or a professional if need be, and it's to really make it a priority that individuals have self-care and high priority in terms of looking after their well-being, making sure that they get the time to themselves, get the exercise that they need, they get personal time as well. Coping methods and actions that you could do is to, one of the things here is to cage your inner critic. You'll have your negative or positive thoughts in your mind, and sometimes shitting on your shoulders, you will hear a voice saying how bad you are or how unsuccessful you've been in life, and all those negative thoughts that'll bring you down. So this ability to make sure that we can cage that negative voice and try and reduce it in a certain way. And there's different exercises you can do to cage that. And it's something that we can have a practice at just a moment. Now we can do this with the breathing exercise as well, and mindfulness is very good for helping individuals in these situations. And one of the exercises you can do is that individuals I work with is that they create a list of all the inner critic thoughts that they have, and they're in a mindful state where they start having positive self-affirmations. So making sure that they have phrases that they can use on a daily basis that they totally believe in, that's going to help them reduce this inner critic. So the more evidence they can create for themselves with this list of all the negative things as well as the positive things, and soon you realize that there's more positive things that this individual can actually look at that makes a big difference. The inner critic, those individuals can actually write the list down, and you can actually put it on a piece of paper and actually burn it. So that's a symbolic way of getting through and trying to get rid of some of the inner critic within. That's found useful for certain individuals. Some people want to bury it in the garden to cage this inner critic and almost have a symbolic burial of those inner thoughts. They won't disappear altogether, but it's one way of getting rid of those negative thoughts hanging around. Getting out of our comfort zones, this is how we grow. And the belief system, we could go on talking about this a long time in terms of the belief action cycle and self-doubt. But it's maybe each time helping that individual get more positive behaviors and getting out of this small comfort zone that they're used to into a wider comfort zone where they have more self-acceptance, where they're reducing the inner critic and they're becoming more accepting of the positive way that they can improve. And sometimes people may feel that they have to know 100% of what they need to do for their job. And 10% is actual knowledge. 90% is attitude. In most jobs that I've worked and people I've met, knowledge is not everything. The attitude towards the role is vital, and learning. You can always learn your skills. It's good to have some incentive to ensure that there's some self-reward for that individual, and make sure that these individuals look ahead and plan and have a goal. So if they do what they're going to do to make themselves happier, enjoy that journey, is to have a small way of rewarding themselves. It may be go to the cinema, they may be going to a park, maybe going on a small holiday, they've accomplished something. Sometimes you have to change the environment where you work or where you are. If it's a positive environment, that's fantastic. If it isn't, then maybe you have to seek elsewhere to try and get that support that you need. We've mentioned earlier about seeking the right mentor and ensuring that we have increased self-worth and ownership, and owning their value in terms of a currency. The currency being that of all the positive successes they've had in their life, all the friendship that they've made, and all the achievements they've got to in that stage, and having real open, honest conversations with the right individuals, maybe the mentor, maybe a family member, having to figure out how they can separate feelings from facts, because sometimes they have big emotional challenges, feelings that override the facts, and to review it in such a way that the excitable monkey that sits on their shoulders doesn't take over, and ensuring that the real human element of that individual comes through. So you sometimes need to be with someone else to bring that out of you, making sure that you have a regular list of accomplishments that you can review, and talk to your own fan base, talk to people that are on your side and are very supportive, and find out from them what they think of you, and you'll be surprised at how much they value your talent, your skills, and all the wonderful things that you've got in your life. we mentioned this in summary. We've got a few more slides to go. So in terms of types of imposter syndrome, we talked about the perfectionist, the natural genius, the expert, and the rugged individual, as well as the super woman or man. So embrace being we talked about embrace being non-perfect, cultivating growth mindset, trying to accumulate skills only when needed, and ask the right person for help. And lastly, start to please yourself more than just others in terms of being a superhuman. So what can we do to rewrite our mental programs that are running in our minds? So instead of telling yourself they're going to find you out or that you don't deserve success, remind yourself that it's normal not to know everything in life, and that you will find out more as you progress. Make sure you're talking about our feelings and understand the context of what's happening around us. So most people don't feel 100% confident. When we are reframing failures, if you catch yourself thinking that you are useless, then recognize that and figure out what you can do about it. The fact that I feel useless right now does not mean that I'm really am. So making sure that we reframe that feeling that we have within us. So this is something that you might find useful in terms of commandments. Thou shalt not be perfect or even try. I shall accept my positive traits. I shall say I'm good enough and deserve success. I shall learn to say no to feelings that self-sabotage me. Thou shalt not be thine own enemy. I spotted a few spelling mistakes there, which I need to rectify. So that gives you a rundown of imposter syndrome. There's a lot more we can talk about. I just want to remind you that this will be on video on YouTube. I can send that link out to you. If you have any questions, by all means, you can put it in a chat. I'm just going to stop sharing for the moment. So I'll be sharing this link to yourselves over the next a few days or so. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this journey with me. Imposter syndrome is not easy for those who experience it. The statistics show that 70% of us experience it throughout our lifetime, and 20 to 30% high achievers tend to experience it as well. If you do have a question, we've got a few more minutes to feel like you can share them. Just to let you know as well, we're going to be doing another talk, a webinar on conquering stress as well. And we did it last month. Some people missed out, so there's an opportunity to take part in that. Otherwise, from me, if there's no questions, I really want to thank you for your time today, and hopefully that some of the information has been of use. And I wish you all the very best. And enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care. Goodbye.